So we now, because Barr told us, the Attorney General, that we expected the Horowitz report on FISA abuse in mid-May. That's when he thought it was coming. Now we know why it's been delayed. Apparently people last minute have come forward wanting to give more testimony than they previously had, and the opportunity to interview Christopher Steele popped up. But I can't see Steele contradicting what he said in a sworn interrogatory under the threat of perjury, because he could be brought up on perjury charges if he contradicts himself.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, I do agree with you that this will be critical, the interview with Christopher Steele. Look, his dossier is sitting in front of me right now. There are 6 main claims. Each and every one of those claims of Trump-Russia collusion have been utterly dispelled, including by the
Why don't we go over
counsel.
the 6 main claims? Well, because people maybe haven't taken the time. You tell me every time you read it, you laugh.
Oh, it's absolutely true. I mean, you know, one of the most laughable is that Trump's quote-unquote perverted conduct in Moscow included hiring prostitutes to perform golden showers in front of him, end of quote. Okay, there's no evidence of that, never has been any, and it's laughable. But another one of the preposterous claims is that Carter Page agreed to lift sanctions if Trump becomes president, quote, in exchange for 19% stake in the oil company Rosneft, end of quote, which would, by the way, be worth $11 billion. Now, if you're Christopher Steele, you're being interviewed here by the DOJ, you'd be pretty uncomfortable with that, because that's absurd. A junior unpaid advisor gets $11 billion in exchange for something that may never happen. It's utterly absurd and laughable. So, I mean, you know, Chris Steele would have to answer, where in the world did you get this nonsense? Who were your sources? And he would have to confess that, well, it was a guy who told me, and then I put it in here. That is junk. It's not worth the paper it's written on.
All right, so go over these 6 main points. Let's go through them so that, again, it's been debunked. And the problem here is that if you don't tell in big, bold letters, you can have all the little asterisks you want in a application, that it might have a political taint to it, but that's a far cry from telling the judge in the FISA court the absolute truth, which is Hillary paid for it, which they knew. So to me, right, they're lying by omission in that particular case, and they're doing it on purpose because they want the application approved. And secondly, if it's now an unverifiable document and one that people are mocking, well, then that means that they knowingly premeditated a fraud against the court. And what would the penalty for such a crime be?
Well, it could be anywhere from 5 years to 20 years, depending upon, you know, the nature of the fraud and the number of them. So, I mean, it's serious stuff. So here, very quickly, are the 6 claims that are completely bogus in the Steele dossier. 1, Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer, held secret discussions in Prague with Kremlin representatives. Totally been disproven untrue. Trump and members of his campaign involved in the hacking of the DNC emails. That has been debunked. Page, as I mentioned, is going to get $11 billion. That's been debunked. Paul Manafort, an intermediary in a conspiracy to influence the election, that's been debunked. The P-tape, that's been debunked. And then finally, an overarching conspiracy between Trump and the Kremlin, quote, for at least 8 years. That's debunked. No evidence of that. So, you know, these are the main claims. And you know, I was listening to the clip you played of James Baker saying, oh, gosh, you know, this we didn't even have the Steele dossier, and it didn't come into play, suggesting it was bar talk with George Papadopoulos. That's utterly absurd as well. Chronologically, they got the dossier on July 5th. It wasn't until weeks later that the FBI learned of Papadopoulos' bar conversation with Alexander Downer, the Australian diplomat. So sequentially, it makes no sense. And second of all, think about it. How is hearing a rumor, if you're George Papadopoulos, about dirt on Hillary Clinton, how is that a legal basis for starting an investigation?
But the problem is Papadopoulos is clear, and apparently, we now know that Papadopoulos was saying he would consider, himself a traitor if he ever did when they were questioning him and they brought the blonde, seductive bombshell onto the scene. And, again, they did all of this abroad, which raises questions. I mean, Comey's actually saying, well, we don't spy at the FBI, but he literally signed the first FISA warrant. If that's not spying, I don't know what is. But he also knew that it was people like Sam Clovis and Carter Page and Papadopoulos that were being set up by Stefan Halper, and in the case of Papadopoulos, by the blonde, seductive bombshell, flirtatious bombshell, to get information. But apparently he said all the right things, which makes you wonder, why did this poor guy spend 2 weeks in jail for nothing?
Yeah, I mean, it's so amazing to me. Let's say you're having breakfast one day and somebody tells you, oh, the French have information about thus and such. Well, people exchange hearsay and rumors and innuendo and speculation all the time. It's not a crime. How does that serve as a legal basis for opening an investigation? It just doesn't. Maybe Alexander Downer, when he related the conversation, assumed facts not in evidence, like, oh, they must be talking about Hillary Clinton's emails. Well, so what? Even if you hear a rumor about Hillary Clinton's emails and Julian Assange had been talking about them on the Internet, then so what? That's not a legal basis.
If I recall, my memory doesn't work that way, but if I recall at the time, everybody wanted to know what WikiLeaks had. I know I did.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to get my hands on them. I was trying to make contact with people at WikiLeaks. Mm-hmm. Every journalist in America was trying to do that because Assange had sent out emails and texts and alerts that he was going to release information of that nature.
All right, quick break. More with Gregg Jarrett, author of the #1 bestseller, The Russia Hoax. All right, as we continue with Gregg Jarrett, author of the #1 bestseller, The Russia Hoax, in October, the follow-up, Witch Hunt, is coming out. As we continue our discussion about Christopher Steele and these new developments, let's say they get Assange into the United States. Why do I suspect that they may not like all that he has that he might release at the time? Why do I suspect that could boomerang like everything else has?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. Look, you're the guy who interviewed Julian Assange.
And I asked him repeatedly, did anybody from Russia give you this information? He said, no state party. I went back again and again, and I asked the same question 5 different ways.
I know you did. It was a good interview. And so, they are well aware of your interview. They're well aware of other statements he has made. The FBI is, in the Department of Justice. And they don't want to go there because he would blow a hole in the whole premise of their Trump-Russia collusion investigation, or at least one of the key components of it, which was the hacked emails, which they operated on the assumption that somehow the Trump campaign had something to do with that, which was absurd. There was nobody on the Trump campaign who had such capability. And by the way, if the Trump campaign through Roger Stone was trying to get that information, why would they try to get that which they'd already helped hack? That doesn't make sense.
All right, Gregg Jarrett, we're looking forward. He's got his follow-up book coming, Witch Hunt, in October, and a lot should happen between now and then. All right, Gregg Jarrett, thank you.